I think I'm more drawn to dialogue in a way, because, as opposed to music, so to speak, as a musician, I think I'm more drawn. Whoa, that car is blowing smoke. Not good. I hope they make it home. I think I'm more drawn to dialogue in a way that because there is a level of immediacy, not only in the recognition of the performer per se, if we're still to speak in terms of performers and audience, I'm more drawn to dialogue because a dialogue assumes participants rather than assumed roles, as it were. Dialogue is an understanding of a particular dynamic which happens, whereas that one which kind of presupposes participants, that people would participate. So you could have people with different roles, and roles aren't bad. I mean, you need roles. Who's gonna drive the bus if nobody's gonna drive? The bus not gonna move. But somebody has to do the talking, at some point. But it's more that listening is happening on both ends or on multiple ends, and in that way, I think when we speak about music, at least coming from a music standpoint, it's easy, or rather it's hard, it's very difficult, I think, as a music maker to wonder, to know for certain, or maybe to a certain degree, how much somebody is listening to me, or also how much I'm listening to them, how much is being transmitted, how much is being received. There is sort of like a mutual understanding when you have sort of different parties participate in the musical event, I guess is the word that we're using today. But this event that is sort of happening, I think as a dialogue participant, you come into it in a different way. I mean, there's a lot more, I would say there's a lot more listening, quantitatively speaking, because you can't both be speaking at the same time and hearing each other. It's just because we're trying to engage with not only the sound with each other, but to engage with the content, with the what do you call it? Not the cognitive, but the part of the mind, the rational aspect of the mind is being engaged, while the sonic, the oral, the sensational, aspect of the mind as well, the cognitive, that which is, addresses the senses. You are thinking rationally and thinking sensationally and simultaneously in a conversation. And a conversation is more informal, I guess, but with dialogue, it's a little more formal. But formal in the sense that there's an expectation that content matters, right? In a conversation, content can matter, but it doesn't have to matter, or it doesn't have to matter to a certain degree, of satisfaction. And so a dialogue normally, so to speak, it kind of has an expectation where you do go somewhere with it, where you content-wise, so to speak. But in a musical standpoint, I want to take the dialogue sonically as well, to go somewhere. But very when you address the sonic component, of that going somewhere, it almost automatically gets contextualized as music, right? And not as much as a dialogue or as poetry or literature, I guess. But not to say we need to coin it as whatever, but I think I'm just interested in, I guess, hearing the dialogue as a particular mode of communication and exchange where somebody could kind of listen to it and talk at the same time and consider the sonic output that's being had, at the same time, because we exist in the same time, but we're not talking at the same time. We're not living in the same time. We exist in the same time, but we don't exist in the same time. We are existing in the same time, but not really in the same time. What does that mean? It's not about the meaning as much as the experience of being in the same time and in different times. I'm not just trying to be, poetic here per se, or trying to be whatever, so to speak, whatever is case, but that we quite literally and practically speaking, on a very kind of a physical level, we are definitely able to listen and not listen, or hear both the sonic output of a sound and also the sound of a word as sound and also as a word, right? So, because if you continue to hear, right, in a particular mode of being here and to adhere to this particular system or way of sonic engagement, meaning engagement, content engagement. I don't say meaning as in like, oh, there's a meaning to all this, and necessarily have to wrap it up and bag it up or whatever, but that I want to speak words because it grounds the dialogue. It grounds it keeps it a dialogue, so that you're responding to these sounds of language, these sounds you're responding to in a certain way. It's very much decision making. Language is so abstract, and we language is like a process of making really, really rapid decisions, and then dialogue is a process of making really, really rapid decisions, and also making more rapid decisions as you intake, incoming messages, incoming sounds, incoming stimulus, of sorts, and then you're responding to that and making even more rapid decisions. I think it's fascinating. It's not like an art form or anything, or it's like it's not like we're like kind of just we're making a new art piece here or whatever. It's more just the fact that, like, when we communicate, when we have a dialogue, it's information exchange, but it's also a sound exchange as well, in terms of sonically speaking. But what makes it sound, is that when you also address the sound and the soundness of it, whether this thing is sound or not, or it's both, or either one of the two, and so then the sound becomes a test, in a way, to kind of so it could become political, it could become, a sonic piece, but it doesn't have to, right? And then you're still engaged while the kind of is going on. It's kind of a sort of thing where it is a hybrid, but a hybrid is not enough. I think of a Toyota Prius when I think of a hybrid. Like there's so many connotations, that not that we need to localize the connotations, but that we need to put a platform out in a way. I love platforms. We need to have a platform where that free association may occur, and sort of which otherwise, in a certain expected context, would otherwise get snuffed out. You can't talk about hybridity of words and meaning, or sound and words, or sound and soundness, and then like hybrid cars, all in the same bunch. You can't. It gets snuffed out. But I don't want to get snuffed out. Yeah. So I think that's interesting, and I guess in doing like the radio show, sort of like a funny way of testing that out, where I'm talking, with the other guy, and we kind of adopt, each other's poetical practices in a way. I used to kind of just talk and be like, oh, it's now 6:32 p.m. on a Friday evening, whatever, and then he would start doing that and be like, oh, and out of nowhere. And it's funny how the more we talk with someone, the more we kind of exchange not only ideas and not only feelings even, and whatnot, but we almost exchange mediums, and the poetic attitudes and personas as well. Those kind of things get kind of not necessarily mirrored, like we're trying to copy each other per se, but that there's an empathic decisions that are made rapidly as we engage, and we walk away, feeling a certain newness, which otherwise wouldn't have happened, without that exchange. And I think that's sort of a sign of a quality dialogue, is where you kind of come out of that, and so it's not dialogue where you you die to the monologue, a log, die to a log, or you kind of just are having two monologues going on at once, which you can as well, but then it's two monologues, it's bi-mono, I don't know, but I think it's where I think the math sort of gets fuzzy, in a dialogue, where you it's not counting a linear fashion. It's not like one and then two, but it's that you engage in one dialogue, and then if you have a third party, or if you have five parties, the dynamics is related, and it's correlated to the amount of people involved. But it's not really 1 + 1 equals 2 in that regard, or it may be, but then it's not the only dimension at play. I think that's really interesting, and where if you have two monologues, it doesn't necessarily make a dialogue, and dialogue has to have a certain amount of exchange so that you can have not so much an equal sign at the end of it, but that you have an exchange sign, not the exchange of money, but the exchange of a dialogue, and I think that's really cool. That's super cool, and I think that's really interesting. And situational, you can have the same thing about music. I mean, musical dialogue, same thing. It's not the same thing, but it's the same thing, same idea, where there is an exchange, there's an experience happening, but it's not something you can really talk about. I think the musical experience, you walk away with certain kind of it's almost like more ephemeral, in a way, because you can't recall it by its contents, unless the music had words in them. If the music had sort of whatever in them, and then you can kind of recall. I guess if you have a score, then you can recall it, right? And that's why people have scores, I guess. But it's a very it's an experience of a different sort, where you have a record of that. But I think as we have more medium, or I guess like hypermedia, with the availability of different options of media usage, then then I think more and more so the type of art form matters less and less. As is this music? Is this radio? Is this sound? Is this poetry? Is this whatever? Like that becomes less and less of a needed question, I think, at hand, as we think about that, because then everything is media, right? And so everything comes through media, and it can potentially act as media, as characters or something, and so in that way, then that kind of opens it up, for quite a bit. I mean, platform sounds too harsh and cold and non-caring or whatever, metallic. Not that I have anything against metal, like Metallica, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I like platform just fine. I mean, a platform can be a soft platform. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be cold or ungiving or whatever. You know, it can be very much a soft platform. You know, it can be very much whatever. But it's a starting point. I think that's the part of it that I like is where you can kind of start off from. You know, because we don't start enough. Maybe I wonder. Maybe, but I don't want to associate the meaning to it. I don't want to associate the explanation to it. I just want to describe. I want to be in the process of descriptions and you know, just describing what you see, basically, describing what you feel, describing what you come to experience, rather than trying to tag on. Therefore, this must be that, and this is why that is that, and this is why that is that. Period. You know, and then wrap it up, and then on to the next thing. Let's conquer the next thing. You know, not so much that. I think we all, you know, all, I don't know, all, but yeah, I mean, if we are human at all, then we need an ongoing dialogue with ourselves, with each other, and I think. These days, it's very these days it's very not popular. It's a bad word. These days I don't even know these like these days itself is an explanation, right? Because I'm saying like, oh well, these days we don't do this anymore. These days it's really trending to do this. These days, you know, so time in that fashion becomes an explanation. And I think that's the time that most people want to escape, you know, is like, well, you didn't do this because of that, it's because of this, and then, let's go home, next thing, you know, like, it's something that's not very pleasing. I think it's not very attractive to kind of lord that over people, you know, so to speak. But these days, you know, yeah, I'm not gonna go there, but these days, but you know, what if we looked at these days as a descriptor? You know, then it would be more about the days as objects, maybe, or I don't know what word you would kind of ascribe to that, but that the days themselves are like characters rather than like something that we appeal to and say, oh, these days everybody listens to stupid music, or like, oh, we were shallow, or we don't care, or this or that, or there's no more whatever, and then we've lost this or that, or it's more, I think, rather thinking of these days as a descriptor and not an explanation. Where back in my day, you know, we had this and that, and that can even go on. It's not like we can't do that or we shouldn't do that necessarily, but as when we do that, I think there's also room to explore, maybe in between the lines of those, in the spaces of the describing of these days, and that as explanation, and then these days as a description. So that was kind of what I was trying to get at, but I'm trying to also get into the next lane. Thanks. Now I need to get over 2 more lanes. So maybe a poet does just that, you know, like a poet sees the world and then explains, not explain, oh, I just killed it. A poet sees the world and describes rather than explain. Because if you describe something really well, the explanation is almost, you know, self-emerging in a way, that you explain something. If you explain something, then you've already brought it into emergence. So then there's nothing left to emerge. You know, it's almost dead in a way. You've kind of killed it, you know, in a way. So that, yeah, that becomes kind of like stale, and it doesn't really go anywhere, I think, you know. What is it? I don't know. It's not part of that right now. It is not part of that right now. It is part of that right now, though, but, you know, because we're talking about it, but it is not part of that right now, but it is a part of that, but it's okay. It is okay. Well, what is it? I don't know. What is it? 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 And then I've just lost my place. But then, yeah, if you describe something so well that doesn't need an explanation, then when another party comes in contact with the description of the thing, the description of the matter at hand, this description of the condition at play, so to speak, then the next party who comes in contact with that description can be free to potentially see the explanation. You know, whether they prescribe their explanations onto it, or if they notice an explanation or explanations, or I don't know what other potential there could be other than a singular or plural, but if there's another a third option, maybe, but you know, like yeah, I think that's good. Yep. I just gotta get over 2 more lanes. Thanks. So I think I want to exit on Western today. I usually exit a little further down, but I gotta pick up groceries tonight. Trader Joe's. This is not a commercial.
Neat. So hope to see you Saturday night, tomorrow night at 7:30 for Piotr Bachala at the Broad Stage. If you'd like information, visit our website, kusc.org, and then click on Events. And rounding out this hour, the final hour of KUSC at the...
That's what I was talking about, exactly. The event, well, Michael Pissarro was talking about that today in class. He was like, at what event, or where is the event in the event score, right? Like, am I going south? Whoa, there's a fridge, or is that a couch? There's a couch on the road, guys. It's flipped upside down, and it looks like a refrigerator. Oh, well. Thanks. In any event, and where in the events that take place, east, south. I think it's left. Anyway, in any event. At any rate, that's for David Aguila. In any event, when people say in any event, it's in any event where, where in is the location or the placement. You can say any is opening it up, right, for options and free associations. Event is the event, and so when we talk about free associating in an event and a position, and a positioning of a free association in an event, in any event. It's very interesting that we see the positioning of an art form in as an event which has a place, and the placement is not necessarily geographical. I mean, it is geographical, physically speaking, that it takes place somewhere. It doesn't have to, and it can also be more than just the physical location of an event. That when we think about geography, using that word loosely in a way that doesn't associate just the positioning but that it's the context, I guess. I mean, everybody uses that word, but the context of something happening, that not just the conditions, I guess, the conditions of something happening that otherwise wouldn't be, and the event wouldn't be the event if the conditions weren't there. And what are the conditions, or what event are we talking about? Or, how do we see the event as an event when it is in those conditions? Then the conditions, do they come after or before, or are they always there, or are they ascribed? They are ascribed by the artist, because if you, if you're making art or whatever, then you're kind of wait, I gotta go south. Turning the wrong way, guys. Like the event of something. The event of something that we talk about. The event. I guess I don't want to use names. I want to try to be original because Matthew encouraged me to do so. So I'll try to do that. The eventness, or eventually, eventful. When we're talking about, like, it all kind of refers to the event, an event of sorts, which the happening of the event is one thing, but the event in and of itself is an event, and we cognize the event happening, so we call it an event. That's simple. I don't know where I'm going with this, but what happens during the event, I think that's interesting, and that's where I'm interested in art making, where I'm art making. I'm not making art. It's the process of art making, the process of making art. No, it's the process of art making. So that it's the process of event making, or rather, participating in the event and not making the event, not planning the event as if you're shaping it to be a certain way necessarily. And with a closed fist. I don't know how that would happen, but if we were, I'm not really good with words, but that's the whole point, is that somebody who's not really good at words trying to be really wordy, I think that's awesome. I think that's great. Let me pat myself on the back. But anyway, in any event, it could be that event. In that event, it could be any event. In considering the event, then it's about being inside the event. That kind of promotes a certain type of understanding which is not available to the person outside of the event. But and then this understanding that I'm talking about is not one that can be accessed. Pissarro also talked about access today on an experimental music workshop, where you are, if you have access to the event, if you're in the club, you have membership, then you kind of, and then you kind of have a certain notion of, no, what I mean is that when you're participating in the event, you understand the experience, and you experience the understanding. I think the latter is more descriptive, not explanatory of the condition that's happening, or the situation that's happening, not the condition, the situation that's happening. And as you take part in the event, you experience a understanding, and then you do understand the experience, but it's not even about that dichotomy as much as you're seeing experience as understanding, so that there's a particular type of knowing, not knowledge as like accumulated facts or information, but a knowing of, and a knowing itself. Why do we want to use that? Philosophy has all types of like like really bad grammar, or like kind of and whatever. But it's because we want to misuse or use differently existing systems of language, which kind of are a constraint upon which we're trying to describing. We're in the mode of describing, where it's a describing of, so even description itself is inadequate. Is it describing? I mean, we like the INGs. Maybe we have more INGs than ISMs, isms. What if we had, instead of modernism, we had moderning? Then it's an action, it's an event, it's sort of more active in that way. It's a process of moderning, not modernizing. That's more of a colonial kind of whatever, but moderning, because a modernization of something or a modernizing of something is more somebody from the outside coming in and then taking away from or adding to it. But the moderning is a process where somebody comes in but they take part, so that it's not colonial in that sense. And this applies to anthropology too, the way we approach, how do we understand anthropology, right? Like, are we seeing anthropology as like, well, we're here to study the people, we're here as people experts, and we're going to study people. And we're going to tell you, and we're going to also tell the people that we're studying things about themselves that they already don't know, they otherwise wouldn't know. And that's modernization, that's modernizing, that's modernism. That's where the isms, I think, have problems. We're trying to contextualize it and call it and coin it, the branding of things to contextualize it. When we ascribe when we name things and we go, oh, that's a car and that's a Nissan car, that already ascribes a certain thing to it. You can be using really expensive metal or aluminum or whatever, I don't know what cars are made of, and nobody would know if you slap the Nissan sign on it, then it's a Nissan. If you slap the BMW sign on it, and it's not just about the sign, it affects actual contours of the car body as well, the auto body, man. And so that's an issue as well. But to get back on the subject, so to speak, get back to the event. Well, how do we get back to the event? We're already in the event. I'm recording. The thing's rolling. It's 32 minutes and 18 seconds. 19 seconds, 20 seconds. Right? 30 minutes and 22 seconds. 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, right? And so that keeps going and whatnot. And so it's this kind of experience, I think, that I'm after, that I'm interested in, not being after it, but being inside of it, and you can kind of, then the documentation process is a participatory action that takes place, and so that you can understand it cognitively or rationally, rather. I keep mixing up, and cognitive is sensationally. You can understand it rationally, but still have the experience of it. How do you describe this event that you are witnessing right now at 33 minutes 14 seconds? It's already 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. How are you experiencing this, first of all, and then how are you able to take this in, and then how are you able to refer to it in the future, later on in history, so to speak, later on in the past? How are you able or not able to, not so much, see, then the fact is like, oh man, how do you talk about it? How do you talk about it later on? How do you talk about this particular event? You can't. I mean, you can, but it falls short, doesn't it? It falls short. That's a distancing thing. But, it kind of isn't totally adequate to talk about something that happened. Oh, man, I went to that show last night. It was awesome, What else can you say about, oh, yeah, well, that guy had a guitar, and he was, like, using his pencil to play it, and then he turned his fan on, and then it blew on the strings, but the harmonics, only 3 harmonics were picking up. Well, yeah, you're painting the picture, so to speak, of a past event, but it's a different knowledge. It's more about the knowledge, or it takes imagination rather to connect, to recreate the experience. And recreating is not like replicating the experience, but it's recreating the dynamic, the quality of the experience, so that you're not just trying to do the same thing again so you can enjoy the same song over again, but each time you play the song, it's a recreation, it's a reprocessing that occurs. And I think that kind of remanifestation or manifesting, becomes a kind of new process. A new process. Sing a song, sing out loud, sing out strong, sing where that it becomes not about documentation, right? Not about like canning, branding the product, per se, but that you are recreating the experience to re-experience, so that more people can experience it, in a certain way. And so the best way to talk about something like this is to not talk about it, but to recreate it.
And this is just me, no data behind it. He's the best Bond ever. Come on, what? Pierce Brosnan? Forget it. KSW. Then they go away forever. They are instant collector's items. 1-800-88.
So before this turns into a radio show, or whatever, I want to pull it back and stay rational. I don't know, something about keeping sane is very attractive to me, where the experience is there, but yet I still want to understand the experience. I want to understand what just happened, and I want to be able to talk about it. Even though I just said, I don't want to talk about it per se and just recreate the experience. I want to also talk about it. Yeah, because if you don't talk about it, then how's anyone going to know? Well, I guess you can show them. Yeah, that's the whole point. But yeah, I still want to talk about it. I think it's still worth talking about at the right time. And that's the time that I'm interested in, is the time of the event of talking about it. What is it? The event of talking about it. So that then talking becomes an event in itself, right? It's not that complicated, I think, right? So that rationally you can still participate. And then the rational mind can participate, the emotive mind can participate, the cognitive mind can participate, the poetic mind can participate, right? So just very much kind of like a holistic experience. And then as you having experienced both the poetic experience or the sonic experience or the conversational dialogical experience and the rational experience, you as you come away from something which is very holistic in that way, which not so much jumps around but does all of those at once or at one time or another or whatever, then when you do go back to something else which isn't that way, you come away with, or you go back to that, or you go towards that in a different light, in a different sense altogether. We haven't used the word sense yet, so maybe I can whip that out right now. So in what sense are we talking about, right? Like sense. And then the sense, well, I thought about sensational and sensate, but sense in and of itself then is a sort of sameness. sort of sanity in a way that keeps things at hand, at bay, at I don't know what else we can locate this at. I don't know where we can locate it at, but you know, like you kind of sense is very much in. It's non-locational. Sense is non-locational. It's non-locational. It's non-locational. It's non-vocational. It's very much I think a lot of the Chris Mann things are like 40 minutes as well. 40 minutes and 34 seconds, 35, 36. Sense is very much that which one has, and you, I guess you could show it, but you know, it's another thing. And the portrayal of sense is one thing, and then maintaining or kind of having the sense in another is another thing. You know, sense and sensibility. I'm stuck in traffic. In a sensate culture world where, you know, we very much rely on our senses to respond and make quick decisions and tune out, you know, and to tune in to things, gadgets and technology and media and the sort of the digital survivings, we kind of see, I pull back because I'm doing all these pulling backs because I'm trying to maintain my sense. I think that's what I'm trying to show. I'm trying to maintain a certain sense so that you won't get, as a listener, as a participant in this way, you won't get caught up too much in the content, too much caught up in the material that I'm presenting as the content of the material. But that sense that when you don't make sense in a meaning way, you know, a meaningful way, in a dialogical way, in a conversational way, in a social way, when you don't make sense in that way, when you kind of like just 6th Street, you know, then you then abruptly disrupt the previous sense that was existing, that was in play, that was in practice, and you then inject or practice or uphold and upkeep a different kind of sense. And if I keep this up, then I'm promoting, yet another sense that I, you know, end up kind of uphold. And it's the upholding of the sense then that allows the event to continue. I think. And again, there's decisions to stop or not. Either, that's what I'm going to say, you know this right now. Either you stop or you don't. Either stop this car or I don't. Don't worry, guys, I'm okay. But that, you know, it's very much a binary in that sense, you know, where you either do this or don't. But I mean, are there other options, you know? Not just in between as an average, as a medium, but thinking of medium as a medium and not as the median, right? Like, not as the average, the numerical average of two extremes, but that you see the medium as an object, as a vessel, as a carrier of sorts that contains, like, jars of clay. Oh, 3rd Street now. I'm about to make a left turn into Trader Joe's, and this is not a commercial, you know, but yeah, I'm just trying to do some shopping. I think I took a deviation. It's supposed to be a shortcut, but this piece ended up being longer. I guess it's not a piece, but I'm gonna have to piece out pretty soon. But anyway, yeah. So in closing, you know, if I say in closing, does that make this then a speech or a lecture or a rant or a show or whatever? Or, you know, I guess we're not interested in that anymore. It's more about the event. The talking is about the eventing. And as we kind of recreate and create and then recreate an event and participate in the event, and also then later come back to it and see it as an event. This collective process is this.